The Yarbers, of course, are not the only family that has father and son that are speaking on our lectureship and have spoken before. Brother Chuck Northrup also is here, and his son Jeremy speaks on our lectureship, and also his son-in-law just led us in prayer, Brother Russ Earl. The challenge, of course, is to look out and see when we might have that opportunity to have father, son, and grandson. And I think Chuck and Jeremy are working on that because JT is coming up now. He's 16, so he is going to be following possibly in those footsteps. Our speaker this hour is Brother Randy Mabe. Randy spoke to us last night. Randy was born in Nashville, Tennessee in January of 1951. He and his wife Sharon made the journey here from Las Vegas, Nevada in their travel trailer. They have 2 children, Louis and Jennifer, 2 granddaughters, Kieran and Haley, 3 grandsons, Titan, Blake, and Dylan. Randy received his formal training through Alabama Christian School of Religion and the Madisonville College of the Bible. Since 1979, Randy has been the pulpit preacher for congregations in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Nevada. He's been used in gospel meetings, in lectureships, in Bible workshops, and camps in England and in Ireland and in 12 states. Randy taught in the College of the Bible, Madisonville, Kentucky in the early 1990s. And since 1993, he served as the pulpit minister for the Oakey Boulevard Church of Christ and also the academic director of Southwestern School of Religion in Las Vegas, Nevada. He is currently also an instructor with the Online Academy of Biblical Studies. He's taught courses in hermeneutics, church history, New Testament church, and prison epistles for the OABS since 2002. We gave him a little bit of a challenge again. His topic, do you know Pilate?
Thank you, John. Good morning to you. Thank you for sticking around. We're glad that we have the opportunity today to look into the Bible and to study the subject of Do You Know Pilate? Before we do that, I would like to make mention of one thing, and that's the good work of the Online Academy of Biblical Studies. And of course, Lee Summit and Olathe and 39th Street have strong hands in that work. And the best thing that I can say about it this morning is this, is that Scott Thrasher sort of embodies what OABS is about. We have an interest in training preachers. I've taught in the College of the Bible, Southwestern School of Religion, Online Academy of Biblical Studies. We have an interest in seeing young men have an avenue by which to learn and study and become preachers that have a background, a foundation of biblical knowledge. I did that when I was a young man, and it was not as convenient at that time. I couldn't sit down in my home and flip a computer on and do my studies there. I had to travel, and I would go to a satellite setting and travel. Didn't have the money to go. Another man would give me money to buy gas to go, and this system fits that need and allows men who are working, who already have something going that they can't turn loose of easily, to still study and to gain this information, to gain this education, and to be able to then launch out and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that was done so well this morning by Scott, and we're happy to use him sort of a poster child for OABS. But you take courage. It's a good work, and it's one that needs to continue on and on and on. One of the encouragements I spoke about last evening that we get is to see coming up behind the old gray hairs are these young men, Clint and Derek and Scott and others who are coming along preaching magnificently and doing a wonderful work. And we can see now that chain continues on, and the gospel's in good hands. And so that helps us. It helps us to see that we're making progress on all fronts. And we're thankful today for your presence and every effort that you put forth in this lectureship and the online Academy of Biblical Studies. But do you know Pilate? I never have liked politics. I like it even less today. When I was a young preacher, I detested politics in the church. I mean, is there a stronger word? I hated it. And it was rampant. My young preaching days was in northwest Tennessee. And the politics was thick in Tennessee, in preacher circles. I detested it. I hated it. I found myself self-governed to the point of isolating myself to where I was and doing the work that I could do with the resource I had and pleasing the Lord in doing that. I tried to stay away from it to such a degree, I just said, here's my work right here. And I think that helped me be a better worker for the Lord, a better preacher, and for the congregations that I served, for one. But I detested that political atmosphere in the church. Be like me, speak like me, believe like me. Don't I get you? I'll hurt you. and I hate that. I hope that you do too. I hate it today and will not participate in it. I hate politics and government. I'm just not a fan of politics. And the older I get, I think the more skeptical I become in some of these ideas. I've grown to distrust politicians. I don't know about you. Somebody comes up and, hey, this is Senator so-and-so. I'm already, there's a wall that's already up right there. I'm resistant to it. And the reason I am is by observation. It seems to me by the time a person works through the political system, even though they started out as a good individual, well-intentioned as they may be, by the time they get to state and national levels, they've already got into the system to the point where they sold themselves and have reached a point where their primary interest is themselves. And to gain the power, keep the power themselves, and not representing the people of which they were supposed to take on and do. And I don't like that. And I'm skeptical of it, and it's ingrained in me to that point. If there's a good man out there, I'll look through all that and I'll see him for what he is. I just don't see many of those. I see it the other way around. I wish it were the other way so I could we get more things done. But when a man has become corrupted, and it's a corrupted system, and I'm not alone in this. I saw a poll the other day that said 75% of those polled see widespread corruption in our government. Now somebody in that poll, maybe me and three other people, but 75 people, 75% of all the people polled have that idea about our government. Let me ask you this. Are we not in a time and a place where we're calling the good evil and the evil good? Isn't it turned upside down? Isn't it flopped over? I didn't remember in the 60s about marriage. We didn't have a big problem with that, realizing as a man and a woman. That's not that way. You get thrown in jail if you don't give in and write out the certificates for men and men and women and women. That's marriage today. That's upside down. That's not what God said. That's not what's right. You can think about many other areas, and I'm not going to take off all my time in doing that, but you think of all the other areas where things are just upside down today. How did they get that way? It was not by the will of the people. In fact, you went to the polls and voted, I say you as the population of the country, take places like California, they went and voted, no, we're not having this gay marriage thing. Judge said, yes, you are too, and overturned what the voters said. We didn't get this way by the will of the people of our country. We got this way by the corruption that's in our government, by the politicians. And I don't like it. I really don't like it. I hope I'm communicating clearly today. Well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of the 3 politicians right now that you really dislike, that you detest, that when you hear their names, you go, you flinch. And then I want you to take Pilate and put him in that mix, because that's where he belongs. I want to talk about the politician Pilate. I want you to see how politicians work. I want you to understand what he had the opportunity to do. And he did what politicians do. In Luke chapter 3 and verse 1. Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of Iturea, and the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias, the tetrarch of Abilene. I start here to give you a time frame. And I want to go back and show you something beautiful about the Scriptures, about God's plan, about God's foretelling, about God's fulfilling. There's no happenstance, there's no coincidence. These things are done and as immediate as they could possibly be done. Tiberius was the second emperor of the Roman Empire, Augustus being the first. Between the years of 14 and 37 AD was the time of his rule. And if we think back to Daniel chapter 2 and verse 44, in that context, Daniel says in the days of those kings, I don't have time to teach that lesson, but that's the Roman kings. In the days of the Roman kings, the Roman Empire, in the days of those kings, God's going to set up a kingdom that will last forever. And Galatians 4 and verse 4, in the fullness of time, God sent forth His Son, born of a woman, under the law, at the right time, in the fullness of time. You know, the Roman kings, the Roman Empire, you had about a 500-year window to hit right there. And that's a small window when you look at all the years there are. But that window God does not need. And the idea in Daniel chapter 2 is in the days of those kings is when it came, God was ready. In the first king, Jesus is born. In the second emperor, Jesus is crucified, and the church is established. God was ready. God wanted it to happen, and when the time came and the days of the Roman Empire came, He could see the end from the beginning and told us about it, and He acted right then. So here we are in the beginning of the emperors of the Roman Empire, and we have the second emperor here, Tiberius, and we've got Pontius Pilate, who's a governor under him. I want to make a statement today that if we didn't have this event of the trial and crucifixion of Jesus Christ, you would never hear the name of Pilate, wouldn't know who he is. He's an obscure figure. In fact, and there's very few inscriptions, but we do have some that we found in archaeology. In 1961, one was found that starts to show you the politician Pilate under Tiberius, governor under Tiberius. It says here that the inscription says, the Tiberium of the Caesareans, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea, has given. What is that? Well, it's a place of worship for the emperor that the politician took your money and built and gave so he could gain favor. That's what that is. That's the way. That's the life. That's the process of politics. And here we have this inscription to show he was there, to show that the Bible is true. It's an evidence that we have of the truth we find in the Scriptures, and yet it also tells us something about the man himself. When you look to the ancient secular historians, you find, and I put these together out of some, it says Pilate is characterized as oppressive, greedy, stubborn, and cruel. Some talk about his violence, his thefts, his assaults, his abusive behavior, his frequent executions of untried prisoners, and his endless savage ferocity. Think about those things. He is known for killing people when he thinks the circumstance demands it. He is one that would have untried prisoners sent to their execution. He is not a good man. And yet he's not a continual evil man either. And we have to guard ourselves sometimes. You know, even politicians have good qualities. They may be good family men or women. They know things are kind, good, and pleasant. They know it that when they hold a little baby, and that little baby clasped onto your finger and smiling and about to go to sleep, that's a nice thing. That's a wonderful thing. That's a sweet thing. And so what I want you to see about him is to look at yourself and realize that he is not continually evil, even though these things are true about him. These are potentials in his character that have come out and have been observed through a period of time that tells you something about the man. But you may meet him and for a long period of time not see these qualities surface in the extreme. In that way, we'll be able to see him as he sees Jesus and understand the impression that Jesus made upon him. In Luke chapter 13 and verse 1, there were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. Now, in our Bible studies, and hopefully you'll know this text, it ends up in verse 3 by saying, no, but except you repent, you'll perish. But here is the occasion of that teaching. What's it mean? Well, there was a time when he had these people killed and had their blood mingled with their own sacrifices. What an insult. What a sacrilege. But this was who he was. He antagonized the Jews. They detested him. Think about that. They were politicians too. In the sense that this man had been poking his finger in their eye all along the way, and then and detesting him and hating him, and then when they needed him to kill Jesus, hey, listen to us. We need you to do something for us. And Pilate needed them to be quiet and not cause trouble for him so he could keep his station and his power. And so everybody has needs. Who's going to get what they want? What can you provide for me? And we're going to see these things play out. Jesus had been betrayed. Friend, come and do what you're to do. And with a kiss, he was betrayed into the hands of those who would arrest him, and in the middle of the night take him to be tried. He was taken before two high priests. That's hard for me to even say that. He was taken before two high priests first. There's really only supposed to be one, is there not? But there were two. It was a corrupt system, the system of Judaism. God's law had been corrupted here. And the Jews had one by the law, and then there was another high priest appointed. Oh, it's just a mess, isn't it? It's a mess today, it's a mess then. But they worked within that, and to Annas they would go, the true high priest. And then after Annas, he'd go to Caiaphas, the appointed high priest of the Romans. And they were trying to determine some kind of charge that would stick, that they could put against Jesus, so that when they go to the Romans, they could make a case that would stand up in court that the politician would listen to and do something about. They would kill this guy on that charge. We don't have the charge. We're going to find a charge. We're going to have many false witnesses come in, and we're going to make a charge. We don't have much time here. We've got to get this done. Once this ball started rolling, once the decision had been made to arrest him, once they made that move, they could not stop. They could not turn back. They had to do it and do it right now. And of course, the charge that came out of that was blasphemy. And with that charge, they go to Pilate now and lay this before Pilate. At first, Pilate tried to decline the case. It'd probably been better for him if he had done that. In John chapter 18, verse 28 beginning, then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment, and it was early. And they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled. That's an interesting statement, isn't it? You got these Jews trying to hang a false charge on the Savior of the world to take him to the Roman government and have him killed, and they don't want to enter the judgment hall lest they be defiled. They're putrid on the inside as it is. But that they might eat the Passover. Pilate then went out unto them, and he said, what accusation bring ye against this man? They answered and said unto him, if he were not a malefactor, we wouldn't have brought him to you. What would you do if your child told you something like that? Dad, I need $50. Son, what do you need $50 for? Dad, if it wasn't a good idea, I wouldn't ask you. We've got him here. The charge is adequate. Then Pilate said unto them, well, you take him, and you judge him, according to your law. The Jews therefore said unto him, it's not lawful for us to put any man to death. If they just wanted to take him out and whip him or something, they'd do that. But they wanted this man dead. And Pilate, we've come to you so this man will end up dead. And the charge we have is adequate. In Matthew chapter 27 and verse 11, and Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, thou sayest. In other words, just like you say, I am. Art thou the king of the Jews? You're correct. It's as you say. And when he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. What is going on here? Are you the king of the Jews? Well, it is as you say. Oh, he's a blasphemer. Blah, blah. And here come the charges, and here come the voices, and here comes the vehemence, and here comes the... And then Jesus didn't say anything in the face of that. Then said Pilate unto him, don't you hear, hearest thou not how many things they witness against you? And he answered him to never a word. And the impression that was left upon Pilate was that he marveled at this man. What was that word you used? Conjecture? In my opinion here, this is a good marveling. He was amazed at the presence. He was amazed at how Jesus was controlled. He was amazed at how he wasn't devastated, having these false things hurled at him by these high-positioned people. And that he would give clear answer to Pilate when asked. But when all these false things were being said, he wouldn't answer them. And then when Pilate tried to get at it through the ones who are accusing him falsely, he wouldn't even answer Pilate. We need to learn from that. You don't always have to say something. When these false charges are coming, let them be seen as false as they are. And the least you say about it, the better off you are in those arguments. In Luke chapter 23 and verse 4. Then said Pilate to the chief priest and to the people, I find no fault in this man. There's something going on here. Here is this politician who has the potential to be greedy and violent and all these things we mentioned before, obsessed. And yet, Jesus, standing in the presence of Jesus and talking with Jesus and seeing Jesus under this duress, calm, he's impressed. In the past, Pilate had had untried people executed. Here's Jesus, and he's not willing to do that. He goes to the people and says, I find no fault in him. Bear with me as we repeat this. And Luke 23 and verse 14, beginning, said unto them, You have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people, and behold, I, having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man, touching those things whereof you accuse him. Nor Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. Again, Luke 23:20. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to them. But they cried, saying, Crucify him! Crucify him! And he said unto them the third time, Why? What evil hath he done? I find no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. John 18, verse 37. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born. And for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice. John 18:38, Pilate saith unto him, What is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews and said unto them, I find no fault in him. No fault at all. John 19:1. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. And the soldiers planted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe, and said, Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him with their hands. Pilate therefore went forth again, and saith unto them, Behold, I bring him forth to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him. John 19:5. Then came Jesus forth, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate saith unto them, Behold, the man! When the chief priests therefore and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him! Crucify him! Pilate said to them, Take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. 6 times. Get the idea he's not about to crucify him? In fact, he tried to shame the Jews into a better and a right decision. Matthew 27:16. And they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said to them, Whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus, who's called the Christ? What's happening there? He chose someone so far away from Jesus, the one in whom he could find no fault, and to shame them, going, okay, which of these two do you want, Barabbas or Jesus? He was trying, I think. For he knew that for envy they had delivered to him. Pilate knew that the people brought him for envy, and he thought that he could get through to them in time and turn him loose. When he was set down in the judgment seat, his wife said to him, Have nothing to do with this man. I've had some dreams. I've troubled over this man. And again the governor said to them, Whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, "What shall I do then with Jesus, which is called the Christ?" They also said to him, "Let him be crucified." And the governor said, "Why? What evil hath he done?" But they cried out the more, saying, "Let him be crucified, let him be crucified." He's willing to turn Jesus loose. He's willing to do the right thing. He wants the people to respond in the right way. Luke 23 and verse 18. And they cried out all at once, saying, "Away with this man! Release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city and for murder was cast into prison. Release him to us. He's a murderer. Release him. He's a seditionist. Release. It's okay. Release him. But this Jesus, I find no fault in him. Crucify him. We want him dead." When Pilate saw he could prevail nothing, Matthew 27:24, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it." Then answered all the people and said, "His blood be on us and on our children." You remember that. The people cried out, "His blood will be, let it be on our head and our children. We don't care if you wash your hands or not. We want him dead." Then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Politician! There's a sermon I was taught. It was shown to us as a young preacher, and it was a very old sermon at that time. And it was called the Do Right Sermon. If you can ever find a clip of that, watch it. I bet you that man said do right 1,000 times in that sermon. In order to be right, you've got to do right. You've got to do right when everybody's not doing right. And on we go. Here was an opportunity to do what was right. There's no fault in this man. I'm impressed by this man. Take this man. Let's just whip him a little bit and take him on his way. And the people crying out, "No, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him." He had the power at that point in time to say no. But they were so heated, and they were raising such a tumult. And there was a problem in the Roman Empire, and you'll find that he's not the most inept leader in the world. He's inept. He's recalled one time. He didn't want an uprising on his hands. He didn't want Rome down his throat. And so he gave in. Sent him on. Washed his hands of it, did he? He washed his hands. But it didn't absolve him of the guilt. He even wrote a title, put on the cross. John 19:19. Pilate wrote a title, put it on the cross, and the writing was, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." This made the Jews mad. Don't put that up there. Don't write, "I am the King of the Jews," the King of the Jews. Write up there that he said he was. Pilate said, "No, I've written what I've written." Why did he write that? Because Jesus impressed him. Because Jesus told him, "That's who I am." You're right in saying that. And he labeled it just like that, insulting as it was to the Jews. Now, I have about 19 more hours of things I could say right here. I want you to think about something. The one place in there where Pilate is saying, what is truth? You've got Pilate, this politician, and I'm certain he was confused about what truth is. But here's Jesus, who is the embodiment of truth, standing before him. He's already impressed him. He's asking him, what is truth? He's willing to turn this guy loose. And the people keep crying out. And then they said, let his blood be upon our heads and the heads of our children. Listen to the preaching of the gospel of Christ. Acts chapter 3, verse 11. And as the lame man which was healed held Peter and John, all the people ran together unto them in the porch that is called Solomon's, greatly wondering. And when Peter saw it, he answered unto the people, Ye men of Israel, why marvel ye at this? Or why look ye so earnestly on us, as though by our own power or holiness we made this man to walk? The God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob, the God of our fathers, hath glorified his Son Jesus, whom you delivered up and denied him in the presence of Pilate when he was determined to let him go. That's some good preaching right there. That's some hard preaching, some tough preaching, but he put it right back to him. You wanted that blood to be on your heads? It is on your heads. That man would have let him go. You called out for it. You're guilty of it. But ye denied the Holy One, the Just One, desired a murderer to be granted unto you, and killed the Prince of Life, whom God hath raised from the dead, whereof we are all witnesses, and we are all blessed. That's my addition there. I sent him to you to save you. You killed him. I raised him up, gave him back to you. The blessing of all the nations. In Acts chapter 4, you have the prayer of those who had been chastised not to preach the gospel of Christ. In verse 26 and 27, the kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his Christ. For of a truth against thy holy child Jesus, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate, with the Gentiles and the people of Israel were gathered together, for to do whatsoever thy hand and counsel determined before time. You killed him. You came together for that purpose. Again with Paul at Antioch in Acts chapter 13, starting with verse 27. For they that dwell at Jerusalem and their rulers, because they knew him not, nor yet the voices of the prophets which are read every Sabbath day, they have fulfilled them in condemning him. And though they found no cause of death in him, yet desired they Pilate that he should be slain. And when they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree, laid him in a sepulchre, but God raised him from the dead. The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, but it was at the Jews' hands. They wanted the blood to be upon their head, and indeed it was, and it was put right back at them in every preaching of the cross. Now, we get to this point. It's an important place. Answer it. What will you do with Jesus? Pilate was on that spot. What you going to do with Jesus? You question him? What does the evidence say? There's no fault in him at all. Are you sure about that? 6 times? No fault. No fault. No fault. What are you going to do with him, Pilate? Here, take him and kill him. I don't want nothing to do with this. What will you do with Jesus? Now you're on the spot. Now it's your time to consider Jesus. Do you find him to be a blasphemer? That's the charge. Or you find him to be the truth, the way, the life, the avenue by which all men come to the Father, and there is no other. In the song, we have these words. Jesus is standing on trial still. You can be false to him, if you will. You can be faithful through good or ill. What will you do with Jesus? Will you evade him as Pilate tried? Or will you choose him, whate'er betide? Vainly you struggle from him to hide. What will you do with Jesus? Will you, like Peter, your Lord deny? Or will you scorn from his foes to fly, daring for Jesus to live or die? What will you do with Jesus? What will you do with Jesus? Neutral You cannot be. Someday your heart will be asking, what will He do with me? I trust that you give thought to this lesson and the complexity of all the events and the people and the needs and desires and how to get things done politically. And it was a tangled mess that came out with the Lord, the Savior of the world, crucified. And I want you to stand in that spot every day and determine what you're going to do with Jesus. We encourage you to obey the gospel and follow Him. We encourage you to stand with Jesus so that the last day you may go and be with Jesus and enjoy the reward that was brought to us through Jesus. You see, there was no fault found in Him that day, no guile found in His mouth. He left us an example to follow in His footsteps. And if we put our little feet in His footprints and we follow them all the way to the end, we'll be standing with Him where He is. Thank you for your time.